Hey guys, we are just here going to look at some of the schools of thought that emerged in East Asia during this time period. And more specifically, we're going to look at what happened during the Warring States period. This is really after the Zhou dynasty, which we talked about before. After the Zhou dynasty, there's really no political unity left in China, or what we know today as China. And so there's a lot of warring between different groups, there's invasions from outsiders, and then each of these little kind of mini states are kind of fighting with each other. And so we no longer have this unified sense that we saw before with the other dynasties. And so there's kind of this period where there's fighting. And so we have different philosophers that come up with these different schools of thought, these different ways to react to the Warring States period and the conflict that's going on. One of the major ones, and we're going to see this come up a lot through the course, is Confucianism. Now, Confucianism is started by a guy named Confucius, so that's pretty easy to remember. His real name is Confuzi, and he was part of the Shi class, which was this knightly class, and they had really lost power during the Warring States period. He never really attained a prestigious position and ultimately just turned out to be an educator. So there's that. But so we have Confucius, and he's going to start really having his different teachings and theories, and really it's more of a philosophy that he came up with. And of that, he started writing down, his followers actually wrote down his sayings and his teachings in the Analects. So Confucius didn't write the Analects, but his followers did, and they kind of highlighted his key teachings. They were very practical, not really religious in how they were written. It's not about gods per se, it's more just about these philosophical beliefs. Now, of these values, some of them are Ren. Ren's really like the big one. Ren is talked about as kindness. It's, as your textbook would say, this human-heartedness, this benevolence, goodness, nobility of the heart. It's kind of a big deal. So he talks about people really living from a place where that's kind of their number one. Also talking about Li, which is manners, and then filial piety, which is really this respect for elders, for your parents, and kind of this obedience, which we've seen a lot in Eastern Asia already. Now, his idea was the solution to political disorder is going to be that we really need a good government. And to have a good government, we need educated officials. So he really focused on having really fantastic schools. He wanted to really build people up and teach them how to behave well. And so that was his solutions. He really thought that people needed to lead from a place of Ren, of filial piety. And if they do these things, society is going to be really in order. He also had some key beliefs about unequal relationships. And so this just talking about how if society really focused on these unequal relationships, like the father was superior to the son, the husband to the wife, older brother to younger brother, subject to ruler, if those people, like the ruler, like the father, like the older brother, lived out these virtues, then society will go better. And so we need to know about this basically inequity between different relationships. And so he really was a strong believer in that as well. A different belief system that came out of this was Daoism, which is a very different kind of response. This started with Lao Tzu or Lao Zi. He was somewhat historical, somewhat legendary, but he wrote, quotes there, the Tao Te Ching, and this is a famous work. You'll also see it spelled with T's here. And the Tao Te Ching really talked about the beliefs of Taoism, which just basically says the Tao is like the way of the cosmos, the way of the earth. And really, we need to be more passive. And we also, it's kind of spoken about in a negative way for the Tao. But basically, your goal in life is to live in harmony with the Tao, to have this simpler type of lifestyle. And so, when we're looking at this, the values are basically wu wei, which basically means to act by not acting, to kind of refrain from education. So very different from Confucius beliefs. Very simple. We should have these self-sufficient communities. We should really kind of scale back being so involved, and if we just kind of live a simpler life. So uniquely, if you look at his solution to the warring states, is basically like stop trying to fix the government. We should just live as simply as possible. Less government is better. Less education is better. We should just focus on our small little communities. And if we do that, then that's all you need to care about. So a very different solution to the Warring States period is really just not to care as much. And then that will bring peace. And this is a very different one than is legalism. And this isn't necessarily, again, a spiritual or religious belief. It's more just philosophical, and it's the idea of really having strict laws. So Shangyang is going to be the founder of this kind of belief system, where he was an administrator in the Qin state, which we're going to get more into that. He was powerful, he was ruthless, he really advocated a strong government. And so he's like, basically, the way to bring order is really strict laws, harsh laws. So his beliefs were to say we should have clear, strict laws. These are legalistic. We should have harsh penalties. They should focus on the military and agriculture, not any other roles within society. As we know, like there's a social hierarchy. He's like, no. Like all that really matters in specialization of labor is military, agriculture, and ultimately kind of the emperor. And so this looks very similar in some ways, in some, to Hammurabi's code, where the punishments were very clear, they were very strict, and they were very harsh punishments. And so you could argue that was legalistic. And so that was their solution here. We're going to see another emperor, Qin Shi Huangdi, is going to use this philosophy as well. But the solution, they say, is, hey, we just need strict laws, we need harsh penalties, and ultimately this is going to bring an end to the Warring States period. So altogether, these are the three different responses and different philosophies that have merged as the school of thought in a way for them to really search for order within East Asia, as we are looking at what used to be these different Chinese dynasties early on and bringing back to order. So we'll talk more about how they really came and which one worked, but we just wanted to make sure you guys know all about these philosophies.